Strange happening in reality. This is Justin from Strange Happenings in Reality, and I believe that this dimension isn't what they tell us it is. I've gathered some stories, some allegedly true stories that will have you scratching your head and pondering the nature of reality. The purple housecoat. One of the most specific childhood memories was calling to my mom in the middle of the night after I had a bad dream. I saw her run into my room in her purple housecoat, and then poof, she disappeared like smoke. And then 2 seconds later, she ran back in my room again, looking the exact same in her purple housecoat to console me. I got to thinking, and I always thought this was her astral self running ahead of her physical self. I saw the same car in person on the side of the road. This happened about 30 years ago, and the story always stuck with me to be really creepy. My mom and her friend were driving to a Girl Scout leader event. They saw a creepy looking guy with his car broken down on the side of the parkway. They continued driving, and after a while, they see another car broken down on the side of the road. As they get closer, they see it's the same car with the exact same guy. They were completely freaked out, but continued driving to get to where they were going. As soon as my mom told me the story, I believed her, and it has always been something that I randomly think about from time to time. I met myself. I live in a fairly small city, and I'm pretty familiar with most of the area. I work from home, so I don't get out much during the weekdays, but on weekends, I usually take long walks to clear my head. Saturday afternoon, I decided to walk around a part of town I don't normally go to. It's not far from where I live, but it's not an area I really explored. Mostly industrial, not a lot of foot traffic, and not much to see besides warehouses. Anyway, I'm walking down this long straight road when I see someone coming towards me. It was a guy about the same height as me, wearing a hoodie, jeans, and a backpack. As he gets to about 15 to 20 feet away, we are now staring at each other. Now, at this point, I genuinely feel like I'm having a panic attack. It was the weirdest feeling I've ever had. I know this person. I've seen him before. It was me. Not in the sense that I thought we looked alike. I immediately recognized everything about him. The way he was walking, his posture, the way his hand was resting in his pocket. It was me. When we passed each other, neither of us said a word. We just continued looking each other up and down. It was the feeling that we were two versions of the same person. The expression on his face was just as confused and fearful as mine. His eyes were wide, and it was like he was thinking the exact same thing I was. I didn't see him walking away. When I turned back around after an awkwardly long time staring at each other, I waited what felt like 10 to 15 seconds before turning around again. And by that point, there was no sign of him anywhere. There were no alleys or places he could have ducked into. I walked back to where we passed each other, and nothing, no trace of him. It was as if he just vanished. At first I tried to brush it off, I figured I was just imagining things, but I think I'm trying to convince myself. I've tried Googling this, but the results were just about urban legends or stories about doppelgangers. My friends say I'm probably just stressed out or seeing things, but honestly, I can't shake the feeling that I slipped into some kind of parallel universe, or that there's some glitch in the matrix happening. I've also noticed I keep getting deja vu about random things. Has anyone ever experienced anything like this? Or am I losing it? I swear I did not hallucinate this. I stepped back for a few minutes. I love abandoned places. I've always found it interesting seeing these places that are now dilapidated. It's especially interesting to me when everything is left the way it was when the building or house was last used. Seeing things naturally rot or change without humans is very fascinating to me. In Hawaii, about 6 years ago, I was near a shopping center when I overheard someone say all the restaurants further down the road were abandoned. So I decided to go check out the abandoned restaurants. I saw an outdoor restaurant first. It had clearly been abandoned for many years. Not much had been left behind. So I went to the next one. The next one was a buffet that had everything left behind, but it was clearly abandoned and had been abandoned for many years. The ceiling fans were in bad shape. Thick dust covered everything, and a sign on the door read, "Condemned." I couldn't go inside, but I looked through the windows and saw cobwebs and dust. The name of the restaurant was Hawaiian Buffet, with some cartoon palm trees on either side. Lastly, there was an abandoned subway that had pretty much been gutted. The subway was in the worst shape, tables and chairs stacked on top of each other. Parts of the ceiling had fallen into the floor. The fans were in very bad shape as well. An old faded sign read "For sale" on the door. So I decided to walk back to my family who had been shopping a few blocks down. Around an hour later, they decided it was time to eat. I told them all the restaurants further down were closed, but they didn't listen. Well, going back to that same area 1 hour later, all 3 restaurants were now open and fully functional. The buffet was clean and the doors were open with lots of people eating food. The bar had people packed around it, mainly drinking. And of course, the subway was open with a few people in line. We decided to eat at the subway. I went back to the same area the next day and all the restaurants were abandoned again. I know I was in the same area too because of the names of each of the restaurants. My family just assumed it was several blocks further than we had gone the day before, since they didn't pay much attention to the names of the other restaurants. So I decided to go back in 2022 and the restaurants were still abandoned and in slightly worse shape. I honestly can't explain this.